Mr. President, I rise today as Israel is at war. They are at war in response to a genocidal assault by the Iran terrorist group Hamas, an assault against Israel and against America, and against the citizens of dozens of other countries. The numbers are staggering. Over 1,400 Israelis killed, thousands more wounded, over 199 kidnapped. Alongside them, 30 Americans killed and about a dozen kidnapped. By far, one of the deadliest attacks against Americans in history. And so our Israeli allies are rightly going to war to eradicate Hamas. Mr. President, we often hear that Israel and the United States share the same interests and the same enemies. That when Israel fights for its own security, they are also fighting for ours. Rarely in history has that been so explicitly, horribly true. And let's be clear about what they are fighting against. What we saw on October 7th, in the early hours of Saturday, October 7th, was pure evil unleashed. Genocidal, exterminationist violence. Nazi tactics in pursuit of Nazi aims. Entire Israeli families were murdered in door-to-door horrors. Israeli were brutally slaughtered, burned, and decapitated. Women and young girls were systematic. In some homes, children were shot right in front of their parents. In other homes, parents were shot right in front of their children. And then the children were kidnapped. Husbands and wives murdered in front of each other. Holocaust survivors massacred. In one home, Israelis found the burned remains of an adult and a child who died hugging each other in terror as they were murdered. They were burned to death, clutching each other in their home. And throughout these atrocities, Hamas terrorists gleefully filmed themselves in ecstatic joy. There are harrowing videos of Israeli babies and toddlers in the hands of Hamas terrorists after they were kidnapped. Why were these crimes committed? Because the victims were Jews in Israel. Because Hamas and the Iranian regime, which arms, funds, and controls Hamas, because both are committed to the eradication of Jews. It was the biggest mass murder of the Jewish people in a single day since the Holocaust. At the Supernova Music Festival, which was billed as a celebration of friends, love, and infinite freedom, young Israelis were dancing when Hamas assassins paraglided in, raining terror from the skies. They shot at defenseless Israelis, murdering 260 of them. They systematically survivors. They shot those who were too brutalized to be moved, and they kidnapped others. At Kibbutz Be'eri, 120 people were murdered. Hamas terrorists infiltrated the kibbutz from several directions, and they went home by home, murdering people. One of the victims was Tom Hand's 8-year-old daughter, Emily, who was at a sleepover with her friends. Tom is a single father. His wife, Emily's mom, had passed away earlier from cancer. On that Saturday morning when Hamas invaded the kibbutz, Tom thankfully was able to get out alive. Emily was murdered. In another kibbutz, 16-year-old Rotem Matthias was with his parents, Deborah and Shlomi, when Hamas terrorists came into their home. The terrorists shot Shlomi in the arm, blowing his arm off. Deborah, heroically, shielded Rotem with her body to save him. Both of Rotem's parents were murdered. At kibbutz near Oz, Yarden and Shiri Bibas, along with their 3-year-old son and their 9-month-old son, they were all hiding in their home when Hamas terrorists entered. They took Shiri and her sons and they kidnapped them. No one has heard from Yarden. Shiri and her sons are now hostages in Gaza, as well as Shiri's parents. These were all by design. We know from documents discovered on terrorist bodies that their goals were to, quote, kill as many as possible and, quote, capture hostages. We know they sought out specifically children, and they went specifically to children's rooms. In the face of this evil, Israel must and Israel will defend herself. America's policy should be absolutely unequivocal to ensure that Israel has the military and the diplomatic support to utterly eradicate Hamas for as long as it takes. I want to repeat that last part. For as long as it takes. I give you my word that I will do everything in my power and ability and use every resource at my disposal to ensure that that is indeed America's policy.